Welcome to this deep dive, and thanks to Safety One Source for bringing us together today. We're going to be talking about, well, laser safety, specifically OSHA's take on it.
That's right. It's a really important topic, especially, for safety professionals, risk managers, anyone really aiming to boost their understanding of workplace safety protocols.
Absolutely. And we've got some solid source material to work from today.
We do. We're looking primarily at OSHA standard 1926.54. That's one covering nonionizing radiation.
And also a couple of OSHA interpretation letters, right? From 92 and 94.
Exactly. Those letters are really helpful because they give context and clarify how OSHA applies the standard in, real-world situations.
So our mission today really is to pull out the key requirements from these documents. We want to get clear on OSHA's stance, particularly for construction and, similar fields.
And offer some practical insights, things you can actually use for compliance and, more importantly, for protecting workers.
Okay, sounds good. So where should we start? Maybe with who can actually use these things, the personnel?
Yeah, that's the logical place. OSHA 1926.54a is pretty straightforward. It says only qualified and trained employees should be installing, adjusting, or operating laser equipment.
Qualified and trained? Both.
Both. And paragraph B adds another layer. It says proof of that qualification needs to be readily available, basically with the operator.
Like having your driver's license on you, you need to be able to show you're qualified if asked.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You can't just say you know how. You need that proof handy.
Okay. But here's something. The 1992 letter touches on OSHA, mandates the training, but they don't actually spell out exactly what needs to be in that training.
That's true. OSHA doesn't have like a specific laser training module 101 regulation. What they do, according to that 92 letter, is point back to their general safety training requirements in 1926.21.
Ah, okay.
And the interpretation is basically your training should, at a minimum, follow what the laser manufacturer recommends for their specific piece of equipment.
Which makes practical sense. The manufacturer should know the risks and safe operating procedures best.
Exactly. But the 92 letter also stresses it's not just about pushing buttons. Operators must be informed about the potential hazards, eye damage, skin burns potentially, and the control measures needed.
So understanding the why behind the safety rules, not just the what.
Absolutely. Awareness is key. And for folks looking for maybe more detailed guidance on training content,
the 92 letter points to an external standard, doesn't it?
It does. It mentions ANSI Z136.1, the 1986 version specifically. Now, OSHA isn't saying you must follow that exact old ANSI standard to the letter.
Right.
But they acknowledge it as a solid resource, a good place to look for developing a comprehensive training program.
So a helpful reference point for safety managers building their training. And who should deliver this training? Did the letter give any guidance there?
Yeah, it suggests maybe a representative from the manufacturer, which is often ideal since they know the gear inside out.
Right.
Or, alternatively, someone the employer designates who really truly knows their stuff about laser safety and the specific equipment being used. Competence is the key factor.
Got it. And one last point on training from that letter, keeping records.
Oh, definitely. The letter recommends maintaining documentation of the employee training right there at the worksite.
Why is that so critical? Seems like extra paperwork, maybe.
Well, partly it's for compliance, makes inspections smoother, but more practically, it helps you, the employer or safety manager, keep track. Who's trained? On what machine? When do they need a refresher? It's just good management.
Makes sense. Okay, so that covers the who trained and documented personnel. Let's shift to what the actual protective measures required when lasers are in use. Eye protection seems like a big one.
Huge. 1926.54c. If there's potential exposure to direct or reflected laser light over 5 milliwatts,
5 milliwatts, okay.
then appropriate anti-laser eye protection must be provided and used. And it has to meet the specs in Subpart E, the general PPE part of the construction standards.
So not just any safety glasses. Specialized protection is mandated above that threshold. What else? How about controlling the beam itself?
Right, Section E. When the laser isn't actively being used, you need to use a beam shutter or cap or, just turn the laser off. Block the beam or eliminate it.
Seems simple enough. Prevent accidental exposure.
Exactly. And they get even more specific about unattended lasers. Think lunch breaks, end of shift, overnight.
What's the rule there?
The standard says the laser shall be turned off. Not should, not maybe. Shall. Turned off. Period.
No ambiguity there. Safety first. What about aiming the laser?
Section G is crystal clear. You cannot direct the laser beam at employees. Ever. Seems obvious? Maybe. but it's explicitly prohibited.
Reinforces that lasers are tools, not toys, and require serious handling. Now, something maybe less obvious whether.
Yes, Section H. This one's interesting. It says when it's practicable, so when it's feasible, laser operation should be prohibited during rain, snow, dust, or fog.
Why is that?
Because those conditions can scatter the beam unpredictably, makes it harder to control where the energy is going. And if you must operate in those conditions, employees need to be kept clear of the source area and the target area.
Increases the potential hazard zone, essentially.
You got it. And one more practical setup tip, Section K. Try to set up laser units above head height whenever possible.
Just to keep the beam path out of the normal range of eye level.
Exactly. It's a simple engineering control, reduces the chance of someone just walking into the beam accidentally.
Okay, so lots of common sense controls, but backed by regulation. Let's dig into some more specific operational rules. What about aligning the laser itself?
Good point. Section F says you can only use mechanical or electronic means as a detector for internal alignment.
Meaning
you can't use your eye to do it. No looking into the beam path for alignment. Use the tools designed for it. Takes the eye completely out of that equation.
Removes a significant risk right there. And the equipment itself needs labeling.
Yes, Section I. Every laser needs a label showing its maximum output power. Absolutely crucial info for assessing the hazard level.
Can't figure out the MISC if you don't know the power. Okay, now for the really specific numbers, the exposure limits in Section J. This gets a bit technical.
It does, but it's important. OSHA sets different limits for different exposure types. First is direct staring.
Looking right into the beam.
Yes, and the limit there is incredibly low. 1 microwatt per square centimeter, that's 1/1,000,000th of a watt, shows how hazardous direct viewing is.
Tiny amount. Then there's incidental observing, with a higher limit, 1 milliwatt per square centimeter. So 1,000 times higher, but still small. How did OSHA define the difference?
That's where the 1994 interpretation letter comes in handy. It clarifies things. Direct staring applies if an employee actually needs to look into the beam for their job, or is very likely to. Think alignment tasks where the beam is this reference point you're looking at.
Okay, so intentional or highly probable viewing. What about incidental?
Incidental observing, according to the 94 letter, is when looking into the beam isn't required for the task and isn't likely. It's that quick accidental glance that might happen on a busy site.
Gotcha. So using a laser level on a wall, you see the dot, but you're not staring back down the barrel of the laser emitter itself. That's more incidental.
Precisely. It's about the nature of the task and the likelihood of direct eye exposure.
And there's a third limit for diffused reflection.
Right. 2.5 watts per square centimeter. That's when the beam hits a non-shiny matte surface and scatters. It's less intense than a direct beam, but still needs a limit for skin or prolonged eye exposure to the scattered light.
Understanding those three, direct, incidental, diffused, is pretty key for a safety pro doing a risk assessment then.
Absolutely fundamental. You need to know how the laser is being used, what kind of surfaces are around, what tasks people are doing to apply the right limits and controls.
Okay. The standard, 1926.54, also briefly mentions other radiation, not just lasers.
It does. Subsection L throws in a limit for microwave power density exposure, 10 milliwatts per square centimeter. Just a reminder that the standard covers nonionizing radiation more broadly.
Good to know. And finally, the classic safety requirement, signs.
Can't forget the signs. Section D. Standard laser warning placards must be posted in areas where lasers are used. Clear visual warning for everyone.
Essential part of hazard communication.
Definitely.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up then. For the safety professionals listening, key takeaways seem to be you need qualified, trained people with proof.
Yep, and follow manufacturer guidance or use resources like ANSI for that training content. Keep records.
Use the right eye protection above 5 milliwatts. Control the beam shutters, caps, turn it off, especially when unattended.
Don't aim it at people. Be careful in bad weather. Try to keep it above head height.
Use mechanical or electronic alignment only. Make sure the laser's max output is labeled.
And understand those exposure limits, direct staring, incidental observing, diffused reflection, and what they mean based on the task. Use warning signs.
It really forms a comprehensive safety system when you put it all together.
It does. And for safety pros, implementing this diligently isn't just about checking boxes for OSHA. It's genuinely about preventing serious injuries. Eyesight is precious.
Couldn't agree more. So maybe a final thought for our listeners to chew on, brought to you by Safety One Source. We've covered these detailed regulations, but technology changes, work sites are dynamic. So, how can safety professionals really foster a culture where laser safety training isn't a one off event, but something continuous? How do you keep awareness high and ensure these rules are applied effectively day in, day out, especially as new lasers or new applications pop up?
That's the ongoing challenge, isn't it? Thinking about how these rules fit your specific site, your specific tasks, and maybe exploring resources like that ANSI standard further for deeper insights.
Definitely something to consider. Thanks for walking us through these OSHA details.
My pleasure. Stay safe out there.